and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 3 in my Headless Horseman series, and in this video we're going to start working on inking the horse and the rider. If you want to follow along with a list of traditional materials, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the materials and the inks that you can use and an explanation of Inktober. So I'm going to start working on the horse again, and I'm using the Micron 3 brush from the brush set, Inktober brush set that I've downloaded from the SketchBook Pro blog. And if you want to follow along traditionally, the Micron Pigma pens work really great for this. And they're also waterproof, which is one reason why I really like them. So you could actually sketch out first in ink and then go over it with watercolor. So I'm working on the horse's legs, just getting the details and the shape there. And then working a little bit more on the bridle over here and trying to get the shape. And I went ahead and added some highlights to make it look like the buckles and all the things on the bridle there. And you can use an acrylic pen for this if you want to, and it has acrylic paint in it, and so that will actually paint over the watercolor, and so you can do it that way or use a little bit of gouache, whatever you want to do. And then here I'm working on the wrinkles of the shirt, just kind of adding a sketchy look here and just kind of giving the indication of wrinkles and trying to make them follow the shape of his arms because we want it to look realistic and we want to get the anatomy correct. And then I'm just working on more of the wrinkles, leaving the cape pretty black because we just want it to kind of flow out behind the rider and give it a real billowy look. And then I'm just working more on the shape of the horse, and this is where a good foundation of a beginning drawing comes in really handy, because if you've got the drawing correct, then all you have to do is ink over it, and you definitely want to do that when you're working with watercolor and ink, because otherwise it's hard to go back and correct that. So I'm working on the shape of the legs here and making sure that I get them correct, so I'm using my photo reference. And you just have to make sure that you get a really good photo reference so you can see all the muscles and the leg structure, and that will really help you when you're working with realistic looking paintings. And so then I'm working on the tail, just giving it individual strands here. You would work on kind of individual strands, make some of them darker in the middle to make it look like more of a shadow there. And I'm working on the mane same way, and you just want to keep adding a little bit of these sketchy looking lines here and just kind of go over the bridle and the arms. And then I'm working on the shape of the horse's head, finishing it out, making sure that I keep the correct shape there, and make sure the nostrils and the eyes are correct, and the ears, just trying to get the overall structure of the horse correct. I'm not putting a lot of sketchy details because we've already added that with watercolor, all the shading and things like that. And then I'm working on the arm here, trying to get the look of it correct. I just want to add a little bit of shading to the arm here, a little bit of some details here, so I'm trying to smudge in the ink just a little bit. And you can use water-soluble inks if you want to, and just add a little bit of water, and then we'll smudge and smear and give it sort of a shading like watercolor, or you can just add a little bit of a darker watercolor to it. And then here I want to go ahead and work on the jack-o'-lantern a little bit, and I'm bringing up my photo references, and I've mentioned before that this is a program called PureRef, and it floats above your program, and you can load all kinds of different photo references on it, and it's free to download. And so I'm just kind of trying to get the structure of the pumpkin here, just add the grooves that you have in the pumpkin, and using kind of a dark brown ink for this, and for the eyes that go around the ink that goes around the edge of the eyes on the jack-o'-lantern, you want maybe a little bit lighter brown, perhaps a burnt sienna or a sepia colored ink, just something that kind of gives it a little bit of an orange tint to it. So I'm just kind of trying to work on the shapes here of the jack-o'-lantern and adding a little bit of that ink on the edge, trying to get the jack-o'-lantern edge darker so that it looks like it's dark around the edges, and then the eyes will be glowing, and that will add more attention to the eyes. The brighter that you make them, and it'll look more spooky. And like I said before, you want a spooky looking jack-o'-lantern. We don't want a real happy smiley face jack-o'-lantern, because that'll kind of ruin the mood. We want a really scary looking jack-o'-lantern for this. So we want teeth and scary looking pointy eyes and things like that. So then I went ahead and added a little bit of some highlight from the light that's coming out of the jack-o'-lantern. So you would probably do kind of a dry brush if you were following along traditionally, and add a little bit of blue also, because the background has got this eerie blue glow to it. The mist has got this eerie glow, so it would show up kind of on the edges of the pumpkin. So we just kind of want to add that on there. And you can just kind of smudge it in. You can either use gouache, or you can just use kind of a dry brush technique with watercolor. And then I'm darkening the edges of the pumpkin a little bit more, just trying to get it so that the eyes show up a little bit more here. And so I'm just darkening around the edges of the eyes and the mouth a little bit, and refining the shape of the jack-o'-lantern, darkening the bottom of it somewhat, and using kind of a dark brown ink for this. And then just kind of working on the eyes again. And if you mess up on the shape, just go ahead and use some gouache or some acrylic, or maybe an acrylic paint pen to fix that. And then just go back over it with your ink or kind of a gouache color for the shape of the eyes. And you can also use that little tool that I just popped up on the screen for zooming in. It's handy. And then I'm just kind of working on the mouth shape again here, and trying to kind of give the pumpkin a little bit of a three-dimensional look, like it's been carved out here. So trying to thicken the edges just a little bit here on the mouth and the jagged teeth, just to kind of give it that carved out look. And then I'm darkening the top and the edges a little bit more, giving it kind of a sketchy look here, because this is a pen and ink drawing. And so depending on your ink style, if you want it to look more sketchy or if you want more precise lines, it just depends on how you would actually ink something. And so then I'm using the Micron pen to work on the eyes a little bit and do the touch-ups. So this is the end of part 3 of my Headless Horseman video series. And in part 4, we're going to go ahead and finish up all the inking and put the final touches on it. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.